So let me give you a couple heads up. Remember your yellow. Folks, FYI, need both of these. The green book that I just gave you does not mean you don't need this. Okay, you have to have this. Have to have this. Make sure you get this. There are other folks in the building who have one if you wanted to borrow one from someone who had it last year. I understand issues of green paper and dead presidents. Really want to, green paper dead presidents money. So I get that. And so just recognize, I understand, but you have to have this book. Okay, have to. You will fundamentally have a different experience without this book. And you need all the details that are in this book. Okay, great. All right. Eric's passing out some your transposition quizzes from. You know, you can keep taking it until you get 100. So you just take it. You just take it again. Take it again.
Hard it is to get 100 on something got 37.
It's worth 1 point.
Okay.
It's worth 1 point.
Okay.
And you keep taking it again. It's worth 1 point.
I thought I was doing good too. That's what it hurt my feelings.
It's worth 1 point. You have 23 points and you can get them back. You have 5 minutes. That was the test. You have 5 minutes. But you did exactly correct. I just give it to you again. You have 5 minutes. Okay. Just waiting on a couple of guests, so I can hurry up. What's that? You literally come to my office, you can maybe come with me, come take it. So what did you do now and say, take it again? It's great, it's worth 1 point. Out of 100.
Do we write the notes down to the office or can we just write 80?
You could have, if you had told me that ABB, like if you put them in one spot and put ABB, I was like, dang, so that would have been fine. And quite honestly, the task was to play in unison. So if you put folks in unison, even though you recognize that that might be outside their playing range, that's why we haven't talked about all those things yet. I mean, they're instruments and everything. Anyways, you're gonna get a Google form today that you absolutely need to fill out the moment you get it, if you can, because it has practicum details in it. We need to know if you have a class right before this class, if you have a class right after this class. If you have a class before or after this class, is it in school music or is it somewhere else? Because we're trying to figure out some groupings. If you have a car, you're willing to let someone ride in the car with you. Not everyone has a car. We're trying to figure out all those details to figure out which practicum group you're going to end up in. The awesome news is you're going to teach twice in this class and go to 2 different schools for a total of 6 visits in the school. So you're gonna do a lot. You're gonna do a lot. So we're really happy about all that. But I need some details about your personal situations to know who's in what situation so I can appropriately group you. Okay, so do that ASAP. I'm gonna talk a little more because you want to hear from Mr. Rush, who is going to tell you about all kinds of great things about this book. We use this book in this class for so many of the reasons he's going to talk to you about today. Brandon.
Good morning, everyone. Absolute honor to be here. Thank you so much for the kind invitation. And, you know, we talked about the idea we could zoom in. There's nothing like being in person. Like, you know, I want to build relationships. You can't build relationships over Zoom. I mean, you can share information over Zoom. You can't really build relationships. So it's important for me to be here. So thank you so much for the kind invitation.
It's our honor
to be here. And welcome to the most fantastic occupational. We get the opportunity to make a difference in the life of young people. I often say we're in the music business and the people business. And in the music business, we want to get to fall in love with music and music making. And in the people business, we want to help them be the best versions of themselves. And what's so cool about that is when everything's happening the right way, those two ideas collide. And when those two ideas collide, you have a culture where even music making has more depth to it because you take the opportunity to build relationships. And so, we have a great, and we're talking about this yesterday, actually, that's later, talking about this yesterday. I mean, I truly believe that what we do is power. And the fact that we get a chance to be significant, to make a difference in the life of young people, doesn't get any better. So, all this, we're going to talk about the method book today, and all of this is important, but don't lose sight of the fact that we really believe in our series that we're in the music business. So first of all, something about our method book that's a little bit different than some other method books is the amount of years that our team of people who came together to do the method book have in music education. So Jeff Scott, who apologizes for not being here, since we get back surgery tomorrow. And he found out that he's got to do blood work and some other things today. And so he couldn't be with us, but hopefully you can get him here another time. Just fantastic. But our team of people, I taught for 28 years, 15 of those were at Wanda, and 3 years at the very beginning were in middle school. Jeff is starting his 37th year, 30 of those have been in middle school. Kevin Foyle, the teacher in Cobb County, Georgia, is starting his 17th year, taught middle school. And Marguerite Wilder taught for 32 years, 20 of those years were in middle school. So the number of years of people that we have who came together to make this thing happen, that's really important to know. Because a lot of times you'll find people will write method books and stuff, but they aren't necessarily in the trenches. And so our folks are in the trenches. And I think that's really, really important to know about. All of our method books, we have 3 method books. We have the green book, Have a Successful Beginner Band Musician. We have the yellow book, Have a Successful Middle School Musician. And we have the blue book, Have a Successful Musician, are predicated on the components of flying. Now, the components of flying are things like timing, tuning, tone, technique, craft, articulation, dynamics, phrasing, musicianship, accuracy, clarity, precision, all those things that we're responsible for teaching. For the beginner book, we really zero it down on these things: timing, tuning, tone, technique, balance, articulation, dynamics, and developmentally appropriate. And that's really important, developmentally appropriate musicianship. Because we have to really get down their level. And by the way, we are working right now on the beginner string method book, which, another day. When Jeff and I started, well, actually, let me say this first. Anytime you have a method book, you need a method book that is sequenced properly, that the pacing is correct. But this is really important. It's not the exercise, it's the teaching behind the exercise, and it's the teacher behind the teaching of the exercise that makes the difference. It really does come down to the teacher. It really, really does. That's why somebody can be in a program somewhere and they can use the method book and make it work on as well if they want to. And somebody else can use the method book and be in another program and the things could just be exploding. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to the teacher. So the exercises and method books are reasonable, but the question is, what is the teacher teaching? So that's why those components of flying are so important. So when Jeff and I started writing this book, I wrote 3 pages of notes and Jeff wrote 3 pages of notes, and we kind of combined them together. And we determined that there were 26 things that the pages contain more than 26. So there are 26 things that maybe we were going to do differently than another method book. Or in some cases, we were going to do things that weren't even in method books. They were just going to be brand new. So the way we decided to do them, we identified 26 things. And some of those things we're going to cover today. So one of the things that we believe right off the bat, when you're beginning and teaching middle school, the first day you're doing policies and procedures and expectations and how you want them to come into the room, and you're going to, maybe you're going to do your binders and pass those out, and maybe you can, assign cubbies or whatever it is that you can do. As soon as you're done with those policies and procedures and whatnot, we say go directly into rhythm vocabulary. We believe that the rhythm vocabulary needs to stay ahead of everything else. When we start them off with rhythm vocabulary on day 1, and we actually have something called first stage rhythm charts that we do. And so the reason why, one of the reasons why that conductor's edition is so important is because of the 10 sequences that happen at the beginning of the year. Okay, so right off the bat, we have something called first stage rhythm charts. And then you'll see, and I'm not going to go over all of it, but you'll just see this as we go through. So in the first stage rhythm chart, then we have first stage solfege. We want students to sing, we want them to find their voice, we want them to match pitch. And we think that's really, really important. And then we have these 10 sequences. The 10 sequences start here. And it's really important that you understand that the sequencing and pacing of this book really starts here. Because if you don't do that, if you go to number 1 in the book, you've missed all the work that's going to allow the rest of the book to happen. And that's when teachers say things like, this book moves too fast. No, the teacher didn't go slow at the beginning to later go fast. Does that make sense? So you really want to make sure that you do all these sequences if you're using this book. So like, for instance, you see here, it says, so like we're talking about format, wireless divided staff, we make time, counting wireless indicators start over with the number 1. So we take them through this whole sequence. And so like, for example, even on that first day, you see this example right here, where we just put bar lines, and we're talking about time signatures yet. We're just putting some bar lines in, and they have to put where 1 goes. And then they can fill in the rest of it. There's all these sequences. And we'll talk through the sequences as we go about the various things that are in the sequences. But the sequences are really important. Now, in our system, when we do this, these are the things that we ask them to do. But our experience has been use whatever counting system that you are most passionate about. As a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and tell you that when I was at Wando, our middle schools use something called the Dan Litter counting system, which is what I'm going to show you in just a second. And when they got to Wando, I changed it a little bit. I did a system more based on duration, but we agreed that having a certain fundamental in middle school and transferring that over to high school is really important. So these are the things when we're using with beginners, we ask them to clap loudly, vocalize strongly, tap your foot, tap your music with your eyes, vocalize duration, rest the short and soft. And then we are really adamant about a very strict down, up, down, up, down, up motion with the foot. Okay, and we say no floating feet. Now you say, well, why is that important? This is also how they learn to, go to a release. So like, let's say you have a half note followed by a half rest. So half a note followed by a half rest is down, up, down, right? Because if a note's followed by a rest, you release the note on the rest. And so everything is predicated initially on that. Now, eventually, by the end of the first year, we start talking to them about tapping their toe inside their shoe because, at performance, we don't want, foot tapping and cheer it over a little bit of a count, right? But initially, we need that kinesthetic motion. There's so many things that they're going to learn from that. And we also have these supplemental rhythm charts we have at universal.com that remediate that. So if that was the technology word. Here we go. So in addition to the first day's rhythm charts, we have these supplemental charts. And not only do we do them left to right, but we may do them top to bottom. And these just give the teacher time to do remediation with the students about the quarter notes at the very beginning. And it's just really important. So let's see how this works. So here's an example of Jeff's kiddos on something called first day rhythm charts. So I'll just go ahead and tell you, this is a beginner woodwind percussion box. I'll go ahead and tell you this. When I do this, so I go in 2 days a week to a friend of mine, Marie Evans' class, and I work with her middle school kids. I do primary numbers. Jeff, from the very beginning, has them do ands. So I don't have them do ands until they get to 8 minutes. But he has them doing the subdivisions from the very, very beginning. Now, he's watching their feet, okay? So this is one of those first day rhythm charts, letter Q, and this is what it would look like. All right, see how that works? Yep. And like I said, you do whatever counting system you feel most passionate about. So if I were doing this and we use that system, and you'll notice that Jeff has the students on the rest do this as well. You can certainly do that. So if we were doing this, like measure one would be, I would get the feet going first, so it would be down, down, measure one would be 1, 2, 3, 4. Does that make sense? Measure three would be 1, 2, because the rest are short and soft. Does that make sense? Now, another thing we have on habitsuniversal.com is we have these percussion cues. So let's do this together. Let's count this together. Clap at the initiation of the note. If it's a rest, try to do this with your hands, make the rest short and soft. And here's how literally how it works. So we get this rhythm groove going. It's going to be going down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. 1, 2, ready, Now you'll notice that I'm going 1, 2, 3. I'm not going 1, 2, 3, 4. They're long notes, right? And one of the reasons is because later when we teach staccato, we need all this duration to be happening. And like I said, you can use whatever counting system you're most passionate about, but in our system, that's how we would do that. We also have supplemental solfege, and we just want to get them singing and kind of finding their voice. So literally what will happen is we will start by having them sing so, which is, and we'll do everything in concert B flat. So, no pun intended. We would start with so, and we literally would have them hum first. The next thing we do is have them sing ma, ma. So we go. Then we have them go to mo, so we go. Start to feel that roundness, then we have them go so. And we want really quiet voices, like children's voices, right? And when they get that so, the next question I asked, so I was in Marie's class last week and I said, if that's so, I said, think about your elementary music and sing down to it. Can anybody sing do for me? And this kid in the front row raised his hand. And he goes, do, and I went, bassoon. Okay. Right? So, but anyway, it was a woodwind class. But so the whole point is we want to get them singing. But we just start on diatonic solfege and keep it really simple with them. We also have some supplemental solfege that I'll show you in just a minute. And then we also have them do some solfege in class. And here again, the book's not predicated on the solfege, but we just want them to find their voice. So you will hear immediately on this, it'll take them about to the third measure to really settle in a little bit, but that's okay. We just want them to use their voice. So and one other thing happens near the end, which is just a typical middle school thing, which I hope you'll appreciate.
All right, guys, let's turn to number 15. First thing we're going to do is solfege number 15.
This is Marie's class.
And ready, solfege.
Just kind of.
Nice job. Keep going.
That's just a stationary pitch sounding. I would also have metronome.
Good. Remember those third box slides?
Remember this third valve slides. Oh, it's much better. So all the time players, this third valve slide, just went on the floor. You can see it. Typical middle school classroom, right? So this is a way that you can use the solfege, and we just give little cues along the way of which exercises where it's appropriate. And here again, we want them to find their voice. Now, we have supplemental solfege instruction on habitsuniversal.com, and there are lots of things which we'll look at in just a minute. But even this exercise right here, number 4, they will go do, re, fa. That's what they'll do, which is incorrect, right? So we have to get them to go do, re, audiate me. go to fa, come back down to me, right? So that's a teachable moment. Even in the beginning, you'll do some things and do on this. We also have, we'll have to not come with 3-note songs. Not only do we have them remediate those 3-note songs because those are notes they just learned, but we also have them sing the 3-note songs in solfege. And we find that a lot of times directors will say, well, my students don't really like to sing. So we say, okay, start with them humming, first of all. And then second of all, if you just do do, re, and mi, just do the first 3 notes, they start getting comfortable with do, re, and mi. And once you get them comfortable with do, re, and mi, they'll sing. So it really does work, and it works well. So we still have to put instruments in here. We've done all this rhythm vocabulary, and if you read the first 10 sequences, you will realize that the next thing we do with them is airplane. So we do airplane where they use like flutes are here. It's also when we talk about the contact point for brass players behind the teeth, where the gum and the top teeth meet, that contact point. And also for percussion, we have them do, we call it bouncing the basketball, but it's basically learning the rebound stroke. So we have them do that during these 10 sequences. And then we have them on their small ones. So small instruments are like flutes from their head joints, clarinets from the mouthpiece and barrel. Brass players, we have them buzz the mouthpiece. For bass players, we have them buzz F, concert F, and concert B flat. And for horn players, we have them buzz G, E, they're written G, E, and C. So concerts, C, A, now, right? And so, and this is really important that you do the small ones. So let's watch the video and then we'll talk about some things that you can do. Hey, Brooke, can you match this A when your head joint's closed? Okay, so open, we'll match the A. Okay, Caroline, we're going to see if you can match the C on your small instrument. Nice. Okay, Leah, let's see if you can match this F sharp on your small instrument. Nice. Chris, can you match this G sharp A flat on your small instrument? Okay, Tegan, can you match this concert F, your G, on your mouthpiece? Okay, using this pitch, can you play a low C, concert B flat? He's just trying to find it, and that's okay. Just trying to get it.
Play the F sharp, gonna do a whole.
This part can be painful if you have a whole section doing it at one time.
Teeth on top.
But they get better. I promise, they get better. Every time they do it, they get better.
Drop your chin. 1 and 2 and ready. Your mouth.
Gotta love it. Notice I'm doing long quarters. Here again, long quarters. So long note. So long tone, and then 4 quarters.
Back your foot.
Everything long at this point, right?
1.
Okay, so the other thing we do in these sequences is, let me talk about the small instrument thing. So you guys tell me, what are some things you can troubleshoot when you're doing small instrument work with woodwinds or brass? Go ahead. Embouchure, absolutely. Embouchure setup. Even with clarinets, you can go along because they have their mouthpiece and barrel and check, make sure the teeth are on top of the mouthpiece. You know, that it's anchored up towards the teeth. What are some other things?
Breathing.
Breathing, absolutely. Good. So go ahead. Absolutely. So Tegan, the little trunk player who buzzed on the mouthpiece, when we were done, I stopped after we finished recording that. I said, I want you to do a couple of things. First of all, I want you to move your 3 fingers down on the shank of the mouthpiece. So he was pressing a little bit more than I liked, and he was kind of grabbing the shank of the mouthpiece, grabbing it and doing that. So I brought those 3 fingers down, and then his aperture was pulled it too far apart. So if you try to buzz and your aperture is too far apart, it's going to be eerie. So and then I had him focus in just a little bit here, and a little bit here. I got more tone. He got more tone on the buzz, he got more tone on the free buzz, then we put him on the mouthpiece, he got more tone on the mouthpiece, and when his eyes went. It's like, so you can troubleshoot all those things just in doing small instrument work. That's really cool. The other thing we have is we do during sequence 6 and 7 at the beginning, position is the alphabet game. We're going to do this together. The alphabet game is designed. So when they first learn the musical alphabet, it's pretty easy for them to go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, because they have been doing that since the beginning of time, right? But it's hard for them to do G, F, E, D, C, B, A. And because of that, that's why students, when they play pentascale, the first 5 notes, or scales in general, they typically do better going up than they do coming down. Why is that? Because this is easier for them because they understand the musical alphabet going up. So we do this with them. So here's the way how it works. I'm going to do it fast. We'll do it faster. You wouldn't go this fast with the students. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, E, F, B, D, C, B, A. B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, H, E, F, B, D, C, B. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, B, A, G, F, E, B, C. You understand what we're doing? So we're going A to A, coming back to A, B to B, coming back to B. So let's do it together. And I'll just go ahead and tell you part of, like when I do this, I'm actually fingering the notes on my instrument.
It's a good strategy.
Because it's hard to do. You ready? Let's try it. So let's go at least, let's go E to E. E to E will be the last one we do. Ready? 1 and 2 and start on A. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, E, F, E, D, C, B, A. B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, H, E, F, E, D, C, B. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, B, H, E, F, E, D, C. D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, C, B, H, E, F, E, D. E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, D, C, B, H, E, F, E. Now, like I said, you would not do that fast with the beginners. But I was so proud of my daughters in 7th grade. Last year in 6th grade, she started and she was on oboe. And one day we were driving in the car and I heard her in the back going, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and I was like, "What are you doing, Caroline?" She goes, "Practicing the alphabet game." I was like, yeah, so it's really cool to do that in the sequences as well. And then we have to do some old-fashioned note cards. And you think, why would you do old-fashioned note cards? Well, there are a couple of things. First of all, this is when we teach them, like if they're writing the blank side of the card B flat, then on the other side of the card, they have to write flat B, because the flat comes before the note. Does that make sense? We're also teaching them ledger lines during this process. So these are things that we'll be teaching them. And then literally when we have them do it in sequence, the first time we do it, they put them in alphabetical order and they do it with their neighbor. And then the next time they do it, they jumble them up and do it with their neighbor, they do note cards. And then to be totally honest with you, after we do this, maybe later we'll come back and have them put some fingerings in. Other than that, we literally go to musictheory.net and set the parameters so that after this, you can like one note above, one note below, and another note above, another note below. Everything else after that, we do on the devices. But we literally want them to have to be able to write the club song, as an example. Because throughout their life, they're not going to have to do that very often. And because they're not going to have to do it very often, we actually want them to have that experience, having to write the club song, having to write some other things. So we just do this as part of this. Now, notice we haven't played full instruments yet at all. Right? These are just all things in habitsuniversal.com. So like, one of the things I would encourage you to do is to go to habitsuniversal.com. The first thing to do is to look under the resources tab. Here we go. And there are all these things. So I'll just go through this kind of quickly. So the rhythm charts, the percussion grooves, when we did the grooves earlier, percussion grooves. All right. But one of the big things is this one right here. Oh, there's the 3-note songs I showed you, right? There's drums. So like if you don't have a Yamaha Harmony Director to set up or like Tonal Energy app on your phone, you can go here and put the drums. It gives you drums kind of like the Yamaha Harmony Director with. This additional teacher tips for habits of successful beginner band musician is all these additional things that are not in the conductor's edition. You just can't put everything in the conductor's edition. You just can't. It's already big enough. All right, so all these things, so this is really, really important. There are additional clarinet register break exercises. There's first concert series, there's first 5-note charts. Then look, I'll show you this one real quick. Here's the flute one. It looks like this. It has on the bottom. Can you see that? These are all the supplemental stuff. And so if you don't use the supplemental resources, then, and by the way, down at the bottom, there's a long tone exercise. When they learn their first 5 notes, there's nothing better than long tone for them to build strength. And so we have a whole long connected side of things. There's a lot of other things here too. And I'm not going over all of them, but like you should check out the resources tab on habitsuniversity.com. It's really important. We also have a document on there called Common Hand Position and Posture Problems. And I will tell you, I would print that out and just keep it in your folder when you teach, or at least write something down and say it's here. And what it is, common hand position and posture problems, we take basically every instrument and go, here are things that you need to make sure you troubleshoot with every instrument. And it's just there for the teacher. So you should do that. Now, here's one example of a particular problem. I happen to have a young horn player where they put the horn up where the lead pipe is too horizontal and they're reaching to try to get to that lead pipe. What you want to do is ask them to bring the right leg out. And then bringing the right leg out actually allows the lead pipe to have angle down, which is what we prefer. Also, we ask them to take their hand and put it like a handshake, and then bring their thumb in and put the hand at the bottom of the fiddle. After a while, when the torso gets longer, we then ask them to change the angle of the hand and rest the weight of the bell on the ledge, and bring the horn up. But we recommend that they keep it on the leg as long as possible. First of all, if you don't make this switch with the horn player where you bring the right leg out, the lead pipe is too horizontal. And what they start doing is an inverse pivot. So you'll start seeing horn players do this for their hips. And you're wondering why they're doing that. It's because the angle of the lead pipe is incorrect. In the rehearsal space, if you have the young students bring their right leg out, you need to make sure there's enough space between the chairs so that they have a little bit more bell rhythm for French horn players. Also, for the hand position, I'm a horn player. I prefer that they start with their hand at the bottom of the bell. It allows them to hear the clarity of the sound a little bit better. But the reality is that when their torso gets longer, we do, and it's appropriate, we want to keep the bell on the leg as long as possible. But when it's appropriate for them and their torso gets longer, we do want the bell to come off the leg. And when that happens, they're going to rest just like you would probably, already. They're going to rest the weight of the horn right here and bring it off the leg. So that's just part of this process. That's an example of one of the things that you would see under common hand position and posture. All right, so the other thing under habitsuniversal.com, we have these startup clinics. And the startup clinics are for every instrument, and every instrument, like your coach says, like this is the greatest instrument on the planet. So like this is, I'll give you an example. This is Army Ray from U.S. Army.
Hi, my name is Dr. Irving Ray, and I will be your euphonium coach for Habits for Successful Beginner Band Musicians. For starters, you've chosen the most beautiful sounding instrument out of all the woodwind and brass instruments. As proof, if you translate the word euphonium from Greek to English, that's the definition you.
Why is this important? Okay, hear me out here. Access. You go, what do you mean by access? This means every student in every program can have a startup clinic. It doesn't matter where you teach. Doesn't matter, you do not define a student by their zip code. And because of that, the startup clinic, these videos, give every student access. So, we were fortunate in Mount Pleasant when we did startup clinics, we'd bring in private teachers and they would do the startup clinics live and all that kind of stuff. You have it here. And that's really, really, really important that you understand the importance of that. So we have 14 to 20 videos for every instrument. Then we have coaches videos. And the coaches videos are basically every exercise in the book. And so, what is that? Let's see, here we go. So they do have to have the access code inside the cover of their book. So if you open up your green book, you'll see there's an access code. So if I'm a horn player, I'm gonna put this in here. You'll also notice. That's weird. Okay. So you'll also notice that those videos that I just talked about are also right here at the beginning. And the reason is because some school districts block Vimeo or other platforms, and so we put them behind the password protected. You also notice under French horn, the first 48 exercises on French horn are horns in unison or horns in fifths. We actually start our horns in fifths, meaning like the same note the trumpet would look at, but it would sound in fifths. And we have great success with that. So every exercise is here. And what is it that we want? Well, we want a model. We want the students to be able to hear great tone quality on their instruments. So let's say that we were doing exercise 132. It would look like this. This is Jeffrey Pilkington. Idea. And then we also have these little pro tips, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but some of the pro tips are just like basic things that students need to know. So like this one's just about
one important aspect of maintaining your saxophone involves keeping water out of your instrument during and after playing. When we play, condensation builds up in our instrument, which leads to water in our keys and throughout the body. Therefore, it is important to have an appropriate swab available to use with the tenor sax.
It's just basic stuff, right? He takes
In order to use the swab, remove the neck from the horn and place it.
So he takes them through all the different steps of swabbing it out. Now, another thing is this becoming more and more prevalent with beginner method books is the ability for students to have a digital version. So I won't go through the long process of this, but every student gets a digital version of the book. So let's say that they forget their book at school or something like that. They just go here and they click on the cover, and then they go through the steps for the access code, and they'll always have a copy of their book on their computer. So that's, things being digital are really, really, really important. Also, for the conductor's edition, like if you, let's say that you purchased the conductor's edition and you want to put it on your computer, you can use, and by the way, you want to write this down because it's actually not in your conductor's edition. If you put habitsuniversal.com/conductor/, it takes you to a page and you can download a digital copy. It asks you to put Lock Wizard on your device, and it will give you, it takes you to a page right here. You have to put in your access code, and then you actually can have a digital version of the things. So if you need it in class and you don't want to carry the big book around, you can do that. Now, I will tell you, for me personally, I like to carry the big book around because I can see the whole story better. And on a device, I can only see a few lines at a time. So I like the big book. If you want to do that, just habitsuniversal.com/conductor. All right. So now we finally got into a place where they're going to be playing. And it's really important that we transfer the rhythm work that we've been doing into music that they're playing. And so we always present a rhythm followed by the rhythm and pitches. And when you have the rhythm and then the rhythm followed in pitches, their epiphany moment happens. Like they go, oh, it's the same thing. Like I was quick version of this book. I used to use these rhythm charts by a guy named Ed Swinton, and they worked great. But the problem was they repeated the same rhythm over and over again. So what I started doing, I started writing rhythms, followed by the same rhythms and pitches, and I would send them to my friend Rich Moon. He would put them together really, really fast, and he'd send them back to us, so that's what we did at Wanda. And so, this is really important. So in the beginner book, we do 4 steps, but you just want to see 1 and 4 right now. We count it, we chisel it and finger it, we say the note names and finger it, and then we play it. So there's a 4-step process when we do this. So you'll also notice that Jeff's still looking at the foot count and down, up motion. By the way, we asked them to do the right foot except for horn players. And so we have them do the right foot, so it's down, up, and they're gonna put their heel on the ground. You'll also notice the mistake, so just watch the process.
Everybody count back to back, 130. Backs off the chair.
What do you play with percussion? So what do we think?
And 130. I'm gonna leave something that's got like this. Now that is 31.
So they would have since they would have done that name. You heard a couple of wrong notes in the keyboards. There was a saxophone that played a wrong note. But if we get 85% of the kids getting it, we would consider that to be a good day. And for beginners, we would consider that to be very acceptable. We would be good with that. So the other thing we have, and I won't go into a long version of it, but it's really important to use background accompaniments with the students because they need a harmonic context. And because they need a harmonic context, it's really important that you use those accompaniment tracks. They're on habitsuniversal.com. Okay, I'll give you a little bit of this just so you can get an idea. Hold on.
Here's the same exercise with a spectacular background accompaniment. Students are at the beginning of the learning process and are only playing 1 note. They can have fun performing with the background accompaniment.
Kids love it too. Matter of fact, sometimes we make them stand up after they play B-flat. They have to stand up and bow. Okay, so we talked about technology being important. I'm not going to go here again. I'm going to give the short version of this. So we have something called Habits Universal Interactive, but it really is something that was built by Music First. And we have great relationships with both Music First and Smart Music, so I'll just leave it at that. But this will give you an idea of the assessment program and how cool. The third reference is for Habits Universal Interactive, our premium content, which includes a back-end grade book and video technology. That's what we're going to look at today.
It can be accessed by clicking on the Habits Universal Interactive tab at the top right corner of habitsuniversal.com. Be sure to watch all the way to the end of this tutorial where Jim explains the two-click method for importing your grades directly into your gradebook. Now, let's look at Habits Universal Interactive and join our good friend, Jim
Jim
Frankel.
Frankel is president of Music First.
I'm going to click on record. Hey Jim, can you mess up a little so we can see what that looks like? Bum, bum. Bum, 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 bum. Sorry about my no perfect pitch. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. All right, so it says I got an 87 out of 90. So if I go underneath here, if you mouse over it, it tells you exactly what you did wrong.
Wrong, this is a little sharp.
All right, so I've got these grades. I can just click export. But that CSV file that was downloaded, but that's Canvas, Schoology, whatever, the Infinite Campus, Power School, eSchool Backpack, whatever a school is using for their report cards, these grades can be imported into it.
So
The third method,
what that means is, there's a back-end grade book, they play an assessment, they get immediate feedback, they get the grade pops up into the back-end grade book. When you as a teacher are ready to do grades, you literally hit export, it goes into Power School or Canvas or whatever you're using, and then import into that program, and it populates into your grade book, which is pretty cool. So like I said, we have really great relationship with all of our resources on both Music First and Smart Music. We also encourage teachers to use Flipgrid, Flipgrid, but it's great. Use video technology there as well. Also in Music First, just to give you an idea of what this looks like. If you're the teacher, you go in and Music First. The cool thing about this is, teachers are always trying to figure out, how do I save time? Like, time is that, commodity that we just can't, quantify. And so literally, let's say that, so this is what it looks like. So let's say that you're going down to so let's say that you're going down to this exercise. What you have here is you have the page from the teacher's perspective. All the videos, clinic videos for each instrument are here. The accompaniment track is here. There is some supplemental exercises for percussion. There's some things for clarinets. There's a video of an orchestra playing the melody. But the really cool thing is up here at the top. All the teacher has to do is to assign the date that you want the assignment done, and you make it visible to the students. It's 2 clicks. So if teachers are trying to save time, they go make it visible, put it on the calendar, assign, make it visible to the student, done. And here again, it's time, it saves tons of time. So technology is important in the classroom, but really here again, we're like, because we have great relationships with different groups of people, you do whatever you would like to do, including use book privilege. On the inside front cover, if you have your green book, look at these are the ones that basically are like what we would call culminating exercises. And so those are the assessments that are there. And it's pretty straightforward, but it really is a good barometer. Now, on that place on habitsuniversal.com where it says additional teacher tips, one of the things it says, it tells you when to go to this exercise. So take your student book and go to page 47. My friend Marie, after the first year she used the method book, I said, Marie, what do you think about those warm-up exercises on page 47? She said, what warm-up exercises on page 47? I said, the ones in the back of the student book. She said, I didn't know they were there. Well, one of the reasons is because in the conductors is that she had not looked on habitsuniversal.com under additional teacher tips, where it said when you're supposed to go to those exercises. Now, I will tell you those exercises build really great strength for the young kids. And the first thing the kids are gonna ask is, do we have to slur? That's the first thing. Do we have to slur? Do we have to slur 8 notes in a row? Yeah, you do. On the first note, slur 8. Right. So they build a great sermon. And so those are supplemental ones that we have here as well. We also teach opposing concepts in the book intentionally. So for instance, when we teach staccato sound and space, like a 50% amount of sound, followed by a 50% space, right? And so like if they've been going 1, 2, 3, 4, it would be, you know, sound, space, sound, space, sound, space, sound, space. We don't want them to tongue the note any differently. Now, we can get into the fact that, especially for brass players, it's a little bit different concept that happens where, you know, normally like the tongue interrupts the earstream. For brass players, for example, when they tongue staccato, the air is actually behind the tongue when the tongue releases the air. Right? But we basically want them to learn sound and space. 50% sound, followed by 50% space, because we want them to make a good sound at the front part of the note. So that's the technical terminology that we use for them. Now, another thing that we have, these are some of those 26 things I was telling you about that we wanted to go in our method book, aren't necessarily in the method book. When we teach the pentascale, scale, this is like a clarinet trumpet part. What you're looking at right here is like a clarinet trumpet part. When we teach pentascale scale, number 45 is the B flat concert pentascale scale. Okay, right? Transposition, trumpet clarinet part. 51 is the C concert scale. And you say, well, why did you do that? Well, the reason is because a lot of method books at the very beginning, they put so many things in the key of B flat. The kids turn into what we call the B flat, E flat club, where they think everything is in the key of B flat, everything. And so how are we going to fix that? Well, the way we're going to fix that is we're going to teach them the B flat scale, followed by the C scale. We're not trying to necessarily get them to function in the key of C yet. There's some things that we do after that with chromaticism, but we want them to have to do these two things. And so we have them do this for about 2 weeks for the B flat scale, followed by the C scale. So what happens? Trombone players discover some slide positions they didn't know existed. Brass players discover second valve. Like, I mean, I can't tell you how many times the young kids you go, second valve, second valve. Well, it fixes that problem. Clarinet players learn F sharp. And right around this, they're going to learn that side key of sharp, right? So the alternate F sharp along with it. So there's some really, really cool things that are done in this instrument. Also, when we introduce a concept in the book, we'll introduce one concept and we'll remediate that concept over and over and over and over and over again. But eventually, we're going to get to a culminating exercise. And a culminating exercise is where they have to do several things at once. You say, well, why did you do that? Because they're going to have to play concert music. When they play concert music, they have to do both things. So like in this particular exercise, the way we break this down, we would say, okay, first thing, look at the note that comes back, stone that comes back in the middle. It's a green shaded box for them. Right? So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to just play the exercise with no articulations or dynamics. We'll play everything for full value. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to address the staccato, the sound space. Then we're going to go back and address the dynamics. And we've just covered timing, rhythm, articulation. So why is that important? Like the maximum from back in the measure. And then if you have a conductor condition, one of the things that you'll notice is that every exercise has feature steps. And every exercise also has a purpose statement. So why is that important? Well, first of all, the students will think you as the teacher are absolutely brilliant. Because you already have some teaching strategies for every exercise, and you're using certain terminology, and they'll think, man, my teacher's really, really good. And every time we do an exercise, they give me feedback, they give me things. So we're kind of telling the teacher, here's some things that you might want to think about when you teach the exercise. So like if you look at this particular exercise, it says for oboes and F before, after written D or E flat must be before, unless you have a lot of depth. Well, we have that marked in the book. So the brass player can talk about the total E syllables and the arpeggiated things in the next one. For the trombones in the next last measure, so our system right now, and I'm assuming this is true fairly throughout South Carolina now, most instrument companies are renting trigger trombones. And so we start all of our students with trigger trombones. And so we have to address that issue, like, so that C, the next last measure right here, is gonna be playing T1, followed by B flat, which is in first position. So all that is there for the teacher, and the teacher sounds brilliant. Students to have all these things. So every exercise, the teacher does and a purpose statement. Now, this particular exercise is really important because this is when we have clarinets go to clarinets only. Clarinets only pages are on page 16A and 16B. They don't have to play over the break. So one of the big things that you have to teach clarinets is how to play over the break. Yeah. And so they don't have to play over the break in the book until number 74. But after exercise 27, we have them go to the clarinets only. And it looks like this. And we have them do each exercise for 1 whole week. So, like, we're going to get them down to the shallow register. We're going to really work hard on that 4th ring finger covering the hole. We're going to work really hard on the thumb rest. And we're going to really take a long time. So, a whole week of exercise A, then a whole week of exercise B, and a whole week of exercise C. What is something that you notice about A and D? B and F. Do you notice something interesting about them? Yeah, so it's the same exercise, you just hit the register key. The one on the right side is the same exercise, just with the register. So we find that to be a real teachable moment. So what ends up happening, like with Marie's kids last year, and we used this with her kids, by exercise 50 in the book, they were all playing over the break. This was in by early December. They were all playing over the break. Every clarinet in the section playing over the break. That's pretty early. And like I said, they don't have to play it until 74 in the book. So because of that, we keep on the clarinets on the pages on 16A and 16B, and it remediates that out of it. So it's one of the important things that you have to teach in middle school, and we have a really good system for doing it. Now, at the end of the year, we have another thing that we do. So remember me telling you that we have pro tips. Some of the pro tips are things on here that can be used with older students as well. Anybody play clarinet in here? Okay, this is a great exercise to do just on your own. So here's Cecilia.
Going over the break is a transition between the low range into the middle range of the clarinet. This is one of the most challenging techniques to master on the clarinet. Using resonance fingering can help maintain smooth transition. The specific fingerings may vary from clarinet to clarinet, depending on the intonation of each instrument. I like to use these fingerings on mine. Practicing a trill exercise between the notes A and B will improve your ability to smoothly play over the break.
You also notice she's working these 2 fingers and she's getting that finger roll. We teach finger roll. Now, we had our beginners do that at the end of last year. It didn't sound that nice. But they can do it. Okay, this is really important. Being a French horn player with double reeds, like literally, and I'm embarrassed to admit this, but literally, when I first started teaching, if an oboe or bassoon player would ask me a question, I either said, let me get back to you, or if they're taking private lessons, I said, check with your private teacher. Like, I just didn't feel comfortable with oboe or bassoon. Now, it caused me very quickly as a teacher to learn. So I did. I learned it very quickly. But it's important that you learn all the instruments, right? And so one of the things we have to do with oboe is the F dilemma on oboe. In other words, there are different Fs, and it depends on what note comes before or after it. So we have a video that they can watch. So Claire was a USC.
Pro tip number 1. As you see in your book, the first note that we have is F, and there are 3 different fingerings. So I'll show you each one and walk you through each one. The first one is what we call a regular F. It's octave key, 1, 2, 3 on the left, and on the right, 1, 2 in the small key up here. So use your ring finger to play that one instead of this one. So this again is regular F, and this is our default F. If we ever see an F and there's no notes before or in front of it, then we're gonna play this F, because it's very in tune and it sounds nice on our oboe. Then the next finger you have is left F. So you would not use this ring finger anymore and use your pinky on the left hand to press this key. Not every oboe has this key. In fact, a lot of beginner oboes do not have this key. So if you don't have it, then you won't be able to use left F until you do have an oboe with that left F key. And the last one that we have is octave key 1, 2, 3. 1, 3 to the bottom ring finger. And sometimes you'll want to use the E flat key. It depends on your oboe. So for this fourth F, I don't use the E flat key because it's not in tune for me, but it might be in tune for you. So you're going to want to get with a tuner and see which one sounds better on your oboe and see which one's more in tune.
So in our method books, if you look at this, for the first third of the oboe book, we mark all the F's. And so like, if you look at this, it means you're going to use right F or regular F, all these F's until you get here. And why are you going to use fourth or left F? It's followed by an E flat. If it's followed by an E flat, you can't use it right F. Physically, you can't do it. So because of that, you pick something up. You have to use fourth or left. Fourth F is not a great sound on an oboe, but it's what you have to use unless you have a left F on your oboe. And so because of that, we have to teach them that muscle memory. So we actually have all this in here so that the students learn the muscle memory and what to do. Flicking on bassoon is something else that we teach that's unique to our book. Flicking on bassoon is A, B flat, B, C, and D. The top of the staff, the universal sign for flicking is the victory sign. This will give you just a kind of an idea. So there's one key that you flick for A, there's another key that you flick for B flat, B, and C, and then another key that you flick if you happen to have a high D on your bassoon. So this will give you an idea.
Let's use A as our first example.
These are all videos that students can.
My left thumb will be on the whisper key. When I change to A, an octave above that, I'm going to flick the correct key for note A. For B flat, it looks like this. For B, flicking looks like this.
Same key. So if you can teach that from the very beginning, it's really, really important. Not to leave the brass people out.
Hi.
You probably.
Here's a pro tip for all you trombone players. Today, we're going to talk about a natural lip slur versus a lightly toned lip slur. Those are the two main types of slurs that we play on the trombone. So first, when we play a natural lip slur, that typically means that you are doing a lip slur from 2 or more notes in the same position. And when we do those kinds of lip slurs, we only use our embouchure and our air with a natural lip slur, sort of like this. When I changed notes, all I did was change the speed of my air. Faster air to go up, and then slower.
It's an education in of itself. There are 3 warm-ups in the book: basic daily warm-up, intermediate daily warm-up, advanced daily warm-up, and these are the skills that are covered. We also, later in the year, there's certain things that we want them to be able to do. The book kind of takes you through that, like, buzzing sirens with the brass with their, long tones for all the notes the woodwinds know. And also, we have obviously world music in there because we want, them to experience world music from different cultures. Diversity is really important as well. So I want to tell you about a couple of opportunities real quick, and then I want us to have some time for Q&A. The first one is that, last summer, for the first time, we started our first Habit Summer Institute. And for college students, it's $200. If you use that code right here, it's actually $180. And we spend 3 days just digging into pedagogy. And Tim Lotzenheiser, Dr. Tim is there, Matthew Arrell is there. And so, if you're interested, I would encourage you to either do the QR code, write down the URL, or maybe write down that code. We had 65 people last year from 25 states and 1 director from China. And we just do a deep dive into pedagogy. It's really cool. We do band, strings, and choir. So Chris Selby and Margaret Selby do the string part. The other opportunity I want to tell you about is Tim Lotzenheiser and I started this organization called the Servant Leadership Association for Music, or SLAM. We start meeting on September 11th. For college students, it's $10 for the year. But if you put in that code, it's $7 for the year.
I must give it to you so you do it.
Yeah, $7 for the year. And you on Sunday night, starting September 11th, on Sunday evenings from 8 to 9 p.m., we have a Zoom call. And it's just teachers literally from all over the world. We have a great contingent in Canada. And we have guests. And we talk about a topic. And then we pose a scenario like, the last one we did last year was, okay, your 8th graders or your seniors are getting ready to leave you, what is something that you do? And so a teacher would share, well, I do a letter to my seniors and I tell them this, this, and this, and we do this. And we just, it's teachers helping teachers. And so really want to encourage you. And then what we're looking at doing for this coming year is once a month, Dr. Matthew Arrell, who's at Lawrence Conservatory, and Dr. Mary Land, who's at Western Michigan University, are going to do a collegiate only session once a month. Like, how's it going? Let's pick a topic. $7. If you use that code, $7 for the whole year. I mean, it costs more to get one meal at Chick-fil-A. So I encourage you to join us. We'd love to have you starting on September 11th. And we meet every week for 12 weeks. And then in the spring, we meet another 12 weeks, in the spring as well. We have all kinds of guests, like Scott Edgar is going to be one of our guests who was here this summer. We have different people who are going to be guests every week. All right. So I'm going to stop and see if you have any questions at all. I know that was a lot of information. Maybe information overload, but a lot of stuff. Any questions?
So there are links to Habits Universal already in Blackboard. So if you look on the left side of Blackboard, when you log in there, you'll see a bunch of links that'll take you to a number of places already on Habits Universal. So check that out.
So I saw in one of the videos that the middle school was set up in like a woodlands grass kind of situation. What is like the pedagogy?
Well, some of that actually was due to COVID. So when that video was done, they had to be, the district actually made them do a particular setup because of COVID. And so that's not how she would typically have her setup, but there had to be a certain amount of distance between students and between sections at the time. So that's what she did. It's a good question.
It's good that you noticed that.
Go ahead.
Whatever you would do when you brass up, what would you do for professional model?
So, first of all, there are things for the percussion to do during those days. The percussion book is divided up. There's a left page, which is maps. There's a right page, which is battery. All the fingerings are in the book itself. So like sticking, all the stickings are in the book. So like, for instance, I'll just use an example. When the winds are doing airplane on a rhythm chart, and they're going, percussion are going. So you got to read
there are some books where the percussion experience is bland, to say the least, in terms of the richness of things they learn. Okay, that's not the case with this book, and I know that's very intentional.
Yeah, and let me say this too, so Kevin Boyle, who's a middle school director and a very, very fine percussionist, wrote a percussion book. And he wrote it in such a way, you know, obviously the percussion book was written to not do a full class. But he actually, in his, where he teaches in Cobb County, he also has just a percussion class. And the book is set up so that it could be used just as a percussion class, with a percussion class only, or with the full group. And one of the things I think is really cool is the way he'll teach, like, so, you know, like if you're doing a particular rudiment, he'll break down, as if you were taking one hand away, he'll break down an exercise first, do the right hand version of that rudiment, then do the left hand version of the rudiment, and then he puts it together. It's very sequential, very intentional, very well thought out. Yeah. So we get lots of great feedback about the percussion books. Good question.
Yeah, and the accessory, the idea that you get such a rich experience for you, even right now, in terms of what you know about percussion, you'll get a lot of information just as a consequence of watching those videos, even about auxiliary instruments, which too often people take for granted about how those should be played and how they can be played beautifully all the time if you know.
Yeah.
A lot of professors in high school, at least from what I've experienced, a lot of middle school professors don't know that much. They should learn.
Totally agree.
So I just want to know, but what problems help.
Yeah, so first of all, if they watch the videos, so it's broken down, even examples like, it'll say in the percussion book, when we do a rhythm exercise, maybe the percussionist is just doing triangle. And it'll say, go watch the triangle video, and they'll say, so how to hold the triangle, you know, have some choices about feeder, and where you can play it, the contact point, things like that. So all that's just built into it. And you're right. I mean, a lot of times they get into high school and there's a lot that they don't know. I mean, a lot. And so one of the things that, like I said earlier about these videos, and I use the word access, that's important. Like every child and every experience can have access to those videos. And as the teacher, I would encourage you as well to watch the videos. Now, there are a lot of them, you know, ultimately, but it's an education in and of itself. So it will speed up your learning as well.
I mean, those videos, the intent of that secondary instrument database is for you to capture as much as you can about secondary instruments, and the amount of information you can glean from you spending time in those videos. That's why you need the conductor book, is because you will not learn enough about secondary instruments if the only book you walk around with is the book for the instrument you're assigned in this class. You won't, and then your kids will suffer. And then you have a kid like Elijah's talking about, a percussionist or a clarinet player or a saxophone player, pick, who doesn't know what they could know, partly because you don't know it either.
So I hope that one of the things that you came away with this was just the idea that so many things that we did were just very, very intentional. And, you know, and a lot of that's just from sharing notes about things like with Jeff, 37 years worth of things he has seen.
Mhm.
You know, and you're just troubleshooting those up front. So it's a really cool.
There's the teacher tips in the conductor book are why we use this book in this class. It's the biggest, it's because Dr. Wright and I have talked about it a bunch. There are so many things when you go out and get a job in a school that make teaching really, really hard. And so many things you won't know until you're in a school and dealing with students and parents and meetings and committees and all these things. And what you need to have a really firm grasp on is your content, right? And there's so much to know. And the book is designed to help the young teacher who is still trying to know all the things, because there's lots of things. And you get 4 years to be here. And if we kept you until you knew it all, you'd be here for 4 more.
Like, does the middle school band meet every day, or are they?
That's a really, really good question. So in our system, they meet every day. for about 47 minutes. But I will tell you this, so like when we field tested this book, we field tested 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, and 7th grade beginners. And what we found was the younger the group, the slower they went. We see this book as a year 1 plus the next half year book, depending on what grade they started in, maybe even a 2-year book. And so like there are places in the country literally who do pull-out models where they see their students 1 day a week in full band class. And they do pull-out models maybe one other time during the week. So it's important for us when we field tested to make sure that the sequence and the pacing held up, even if the schedule changed. And we found that it did. And that was very assuring to us. But yes, the younger the student, and depending on the model, potentially it may take them a little longer to get through it, but that's okay. I always say it's better to go slow than later go fast. Don't try to push your way through, like if you ignore all those resources and have universal.com, it's not gonna work. Not like it should.
So that happened, especially where I live, 6th grade was every other day. We had woodwind and brass, and we only met like 3 days before the concert. 6th grade.
Yep.
Crazy.
Hey, let's thank Mr. Rush.
Anything I can do for you, anytime when you get out in the field or before, don't ever hesitate to reach out to me, send me an email.
It's 11:21. I know some of you have classes on the other side of campus. See you. We need to go. You can pick up. Do not lose that book. Some people didn't turn in trombone books from last year. I just spent $30 of the money I don't really have as a human right now for extra trombone books. So those books have to come back to us at the end of the semester. Please don't lose them. Please don't destroy them. Please take care of them. Thank you. Hold on one second.
I'll have a sign.
Great, that'd be awesome.